And hello people of YouTube, and welcome to a much awaited video I think on the channel. So this is my life and times of video. So I did these quite a while ago. Actually I can't remember when I did the last one. It was probably about a year or so ago. It was, I believe, during the first lockdown here in the UK. But yeah, so much has gone on, and obviously I've not really done much Narnia videos. But I have a bit of time now, so I thought, you know, it's long overdue. I do need to do with the rest of the characters. And so this is episode 5 of the Life and Times, and in this episode I'm going to be discussing the life and times of Jadis, you know, the Queen of Charn, or the White Witch as she is more referred to. So obviously I've done research online. I've been using like the wiki and Narnia web and stuff for all this information. So a little bit about her sort of biography and stuff. She was born in Charn. She is classed as half Jinn, half giant. She is described, I believe, in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe as being a very tall woman. So she apparently has a bit of a sort of a history about her background before the Magician's Nephew, is that she has an unnamed sister and an unnamed grandfather as well. Weapons she uses, you know, pretty much any weapon she can get her hands on, pretty much. But it's mainly sort of sword. She uses a sword, a stone knife, and her wand that is able to turn people into stone. So yeah, a little bit about her life before sort of the events of Magician's Nephew. So she was the final queen of Charn. Charn is basically where she sort of grew up. She learnt witchcraft. So while she was growing up, she learnt this spell called the Deplorable Word. So when you speak this spell, it destroys literally everything around you. It destroys practically everything apart from yourself when you use it. So apparently at some point she and her sister were in a big battle, basically for who was going to become Queen of Charn. And she had a big conflict with her sister, and this resulted, during this battle she did speak the Deplorable Word. So Jadis kind of became queen by default. But because she spoke this word, it destroyed everything around her. So literally she was queen, but she wasn't really queen of anything because pretty much everything around her was destroyed. So she actually placed a spell upon herself to preserve herself in like a statue-like form. And the other way that this spell could be broke is if somebody rings the bell that was at the side of her. And she knew that one day there'd be somebody who would come along, just be curious and ring the bell, and then that would kind of break the spell and bring her back alive. Basically the spell would preserve her body, so her body wouldn't age or change at all. It'd just be exactly the same as when she used the spell to begin with. So of course in Magician's Nephew, she is freed from the spell by Diggory, I believe. He's the one who rings the bell. And basically, from what I remember, I'm trying not to go into too much spoilers, so I'm going to basically tell you a very brief summary and try not to go too deep into the stories. But basically she is forced, she forces Diggory and Polly to take her along with them when they go back to Earth, to the human world. So she ends up planning to try and take over Earth. And I remember it's a pretty iconic image from the Magician's Nephew where she's riding down the street on like a horseback and on a carriage. But yeah, she ends up causing complete chaos basically. Diggory and Polly do end up getting her back, not to Charn, but they end up getting her back in the wood between the worlds. They do try and get her back to Charn. Basically the wood between the worlds is like, it's basically a wood, but there's like loads of holes in the ground, and if you go into the holes it's like all different worlds from what I believe. So they end up going into one of these holes which they think is Charn, but it's not. When they go into this world it's just darkness. And this is where Jadis, Diggory, Polly, and I believe a couple of other people, I believe a taxi driver, and somebody else, they basically witness the creation of Narnia. They witness Aslan basically singing and creating Narnia. So it's known that Jadis was the first evil to ever step foot in Narnia. So basically she learns about this a powerful tree that Aslan intended to plant in Narnia to act as like a shield. So basically she couldn't get into Narnia. So later on she is found in a garden where Diggory is sent to get an apple for the tree. So basically Jadis is found in this garden and she tries to tempt Diggory, basically saying, you know, if you eat this apple, you'll be immortal, you'll be young forever, we can rule Narnia together. Diggory is not tempted by her. You know, she does try and get Diggory off kind of his set path that Aslan set for him. So she does try and tempt Diggory, but Diggory doesn't fall for it. So obviously the tree is planted and basically Narnia is protected. So basically for about 900 years, Jadis lived in the wild lands of the north, where she basically sort of just waited and abided her time. In that time, obviously because she had actually eaten an apple from the tree, it had made her immortal and more powerful, but she was cursed. She was basically cursed to live like this forever. So basically after 900 years, the tree shield did die. So after that, she was able to get into Narnia, and she became queen. She basically took over. You know, she made it where it was always winter. It was always snowing. It was always cold. She banned Christmas. She banned humans from coming into Narnia. She basically drove Aslan out of Narnia. She stopped Father Christmas from coming in Narnia. She banned Christmas. She basically took over the entire land with her magic. And she obviously had a palace. She had an army of many dark creatures, you know, ghosts, ghouls, bats, wolves, werewolves, hags, you name it. Any dark creature joined her side. And then obviously she had the secret police as well, which was made up of a number of creatures that were basically her spies. So basically she ruled for many years until the events of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, where she meets Edmund in the woods. Here she learns, well, she already knew about it before she met Edmund, but here she sees that the prophecy is starting to become real. The prophecy where 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve would come to Narnia and defeat her. So like I said, she meets Edmund and she learns obviously about the prophecy that Lucy had already been in Narnia before. Edmund was obviously there, and that he had another brother and sister, so that obviously was the 4 of them. So she tempts him with like a hot drink and Turkish delight, and she tells Edmund that next time he comes to Narnia to bring his siblings and to bring them to her house. So obviously as Edmund goes, during then and the next time that the Pevenses come to Narnia, Mr. Tumnus is arrested because Edmund unwillingly kind of grasped on him and said that Tumnus had been helping Lucy. So basically when they come to Narnia again, Edmund basically tries to get his siblings to go to the witch's castle, but because obviously they find out Tumnus has been arrested, then they get led away by the beavers. Edmund basically sneaks out on his own, and he sneaks up to the Queen's castle, tells the Queen where his siblings are, but because obviously because Edmund had basically kind of disobeyed the Queen's orders, Edmund's thrown in a cell. Jadis sends her wolves to the beavers' house to kill the beavers and the other 3 Pevenses, but by the time they get there, they've gone. And this is where basically the rebellion starts, because at this point, it is known that Aslan's on the move. Aslan's come back to Narnia. You know, the winter's very slowly turning into spring. Jadis's powers have started to weaken. So basically, she fails to kill the other 3 siblings before they get to Aslan's camp, and obviously because they're in Aslan's camp, they're now protected. She can't kill them. So she decides to take matters into her own hands, and she's like, well, the prophecy can't be fulfilled anyway because she's got Edmund as her captive. So she just decides, you know what, she's just going to go kill him, and then that'll stop the prophecy from coming true anyway. But Edmund is, of course, rescued. So basically, Jadis goes to the camp and demands a meeting with Aslan, and she basically talks about the deep magic that because Edmund's a traitor, she has the right to him, and that she has the right to basically claim him back. So Aslan and the White Witch obviously speak in private, and basically Aslan offers his own life to save Edmund, which Jadis accepts because obviously Aslan's a bigger threat here. So if she can kill Aslan, she will. But then, even though Aslan's done this to save Edmund, what's to stop Jadis from killing the kids after? So basically she's like, it's a win-win situation for her, basically. Once Aslan's dead, what's to stop her from killing the kids as well? So obviously she kills Aslan, and then obviously she prepares her army for battle. During this battle, obviously she does wound Edmund, and then obviously she fights Peter, but she's ultimately killed. In the book, at least, she is killed by Aslan. Aslan actually leaps upon her and basically kills her. Her death, I will talk about her death once I've spoke about her appearances, but her death does alter between all the different versions and adaptations. But yeah, she's ultimately killed by Aslan, and then of course, once she's dead, you know, basically her army flees. Many of her soldiers either surrender, like many of her army either surrender or they flee. And obviously, Edmund is saved by Lucy's cordial, and then obviously the children do fulfill the prophecy. And obviously become kings and queens. So the next time that Jadis appears, so at this point she's been a magician's nephew, of course, and the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. She doesn't appear in Horse and His Boy from what I can remember. There might be maybe a reference to her at some point, but I don't think there is, but she doesn't actually appear in that story. Because obviously at this point her character's dead, so there might have been maybe a mention of her. I'm not too sure, it's been a while since I've read the books. So her next kind of appearance is in Prince Caspian, where there's basically a hag, a werewolf, and a dwarf called Knickerbrick, and basically they know of Jadis's powers, and they know of a way to revive her, because they know that you know they've tried relying on the Pevenses and Caspian, and nothing seems to be working. So Knickerbrick's like, there is another magic we can use, which might enable us to defeat Miraz. And Knickerbrick talks about obviously Jadis and her powers. So they do attempt through a ritual, they do attempt to bring the White Witch back to life, but a fight ends up breaking out before they can actually finish the ritual. So they basically the hag, the werewolf, and Knickerbrick are all killed. So it basically stops Jadis from ever coming back, basically. Obviously in the film, in the 2008 Prince Caspian film, obviously that's different. She does technically appear, but as like a ghost, which again I'll speak about. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, again she doesn't actually appear in the book. Edmund does speak to Eustace, basically saying that he does know of a traitor that mended himself. Obviously he was referring to himself back during the events of Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. But obviously in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader film, we do know the White Witch appears with the whole green mist and and Seven Swords element to it. She basically appears on the Dark Island trying to tempt Edmund. So yeah, and then obviously with Prince Caspian, the scene, it pretty much was the scene from the book, but they just expanded it really. So it's like, oh, Jadis actually appeared in like a wall of ice as like a ghost, and she was tempting Caspian and Peter to bring her back. That she needed blood from a son of Adam to come back, and she possibly could have come back if Edmund hadn't have broken the ice and destroyed the ice, because obviously Edmund had been through it before, so he wasn't tempted anymore. So that's why in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader film, I don't get why Edmund's tempted by her again. It's like, you weren't tempted by her in Prince Caspian, so why have you gone back to being tempted by her again? And kind of very bad character development on the film's part. Obviously the books are so much better. Although she technically doesn't appear, it is speculated in the Silver Chair as well with the Lady of the Green Kirtle that the White Witch and the Lady of the Green Kirtle are one of the same crew. It doesn't mean they're the same person. But obviously this has caused, I've spoke about this in a previous Narnia video, this has caused confusion amongst fans, because a lot of fans think that the Lady of the Green Kirtle and the White Witch is one of the same, it's the same person basically, just in a different form, where it's not. They're believed they're from the same sort of evil, they're from that same sort of group, but they're not related, they're not the same person, they're completely different people. Obviously the BBC adaptations kind of added to that, because they used the same actress for the White Witch and the Lady of the Green Kirtle in the BBC adaptations. They used Barbara Kellerman, but they didn't do that intentionally to confuse fans, they just did it because it was a way of saving money, you know, to reuse an actress they'd already used rather than paying someone new. So yeah, obviously, so Silver Chair shouldn't technically appear in, but that is mentioned, I think by one of the owls. It said that the White Witch and the Lady of the Green Kirtle are believed to be one of the same like crew, or the same evil basically. And I don't believe she appears in the last battle, because obviously at this point she'd been dead for many years. So of course she's dead by the end of the series basically. So yeah, so that is basically a very quick summary of the life and times of Jadis, the Queen of Charn, or the White Witch. My apologies for this video being like so late up. You know, I did want to try and do as many as I could. But yeah, I just did the 4 pregnancies before, and then I kind of stopped doing these. But I thought, you know, I had some time today, so I thought I might as well do. I'm due to do another Narnia video. I haven't done one for a long time, so I thought I'd do one for you guys. I know you guys do like my Narnia videos. So hopefully my next Life and Times of video will be the Life and Times of Aslan. Not sure when I'll do it, but I will do it at some point. But yeah, of course, like I said, this was just a very brief explanation. Obviously, you can read more about Jadis online if you go on Narnia Web, on Wikipedia, on the Chronicles of Narnia Wiki, you know, places like that. You can learn a lot more about our characters and stuff like that. So that is that, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.